about this. You know, clearly there's some. We are probably going to have to change at least one word in our regulation, just to with what DOT says. Their definitions, I think.
What word is that?
That would be registered to certified. Yes.
Let's hear what Mr. Holder
has
has to say.
Of course. That's what I'm Chief.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, licensees, members of the public. I spoke with Don Brewer, the head of Weights and Measures, the chief of Weights and Measures this morning, and I asked for clarification and asked if he's read our regulations pertaining to marijuana and scales. He said he has, and he has seen no issue, either have they. And to explain it quite simply, he said that every scale is registered. He says somebody approaches them, they tell them they want a scale to be looked at, so they register the scale in their system, which prompts a way for them to bill them. Once they get billed and it's in the system and then they make that payment, then they go out to check on the scale, and then it becomes certified. So he said that our language in our regulation that says a marijuana establishment shall use registered scales in compliance with insinuates that it is also certified. So there is no difference to them either or. And to read the regulation directly from 17 AAC 90925, registration required. It says a person who uses or has in possession for the purpose of using for a commercial purpose specified in AS 4575080 a new or used weighing or measuring device not previously used in commerce must contact the division to register the device and pay the applicable registration fee described in 17 AAC 90920 when billed. Upon completion of registration and receipt of the registration fee, the division will provide a certificate or other evidence of device registration compliance to the registrant. Now, once that's done and they register the scale with a blue sticker which indicates it's passed, a red one indicates it hasn't. So the blue sticker indicates it's passed and it is now certified. Enforcement will do the initial inspection, and once we see the blue sticker on the scale, we are verifying that that scale is in compliance with that statute that's mentioned.
Okay, great. And I would just venture that when you're buying a new scale, either Squirrels or wherever, they probably help you with the registration process right there for sale.
Some even do it for you. I know from our experience, enforcement has scales of our own that we have to get registered as well. And the place where we bought them from actually was willing to take them to Weights and Measures, get them certified for us. I told them I needed to go see them anyway, so I brought it myself. But that option is there. I know at least for places that they purchase for in Alaska.
Okay, very good. Can I get my postage scale registered? Okay, thank you, Chief. That clarifies that quite nicely. So we will pick up where we left off yesterday. On tab number 5, which is Great Northern Cannabis. Well, are you okay? Well, we can flop it around. Is Esther Horticultural Research here?
He would be on the phone.
Okay, all right, very good.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
With us this morning?
Yes, I am. This is John Coyle, Esther Horticulture.
Okay, good morning. So we're going to take up your NOV here. And this has to do with a violation of regulations concerning a metric transfer manifest. Hey, do you have any Okay, we'll get your letter in here. Okay, go ahead and say what you'd like to say, if you want to say anything on it.
All right. Amanda Stonecipher raises two questions there. The reason for the NOV. One was a discrepancy between my manifest and the route with the second stop, which was Mike Amherst Street Farm. Yesterday, when Mike Amherst was talking with you, he admitted to you guys that he had made a change on a gas stop. He believed, he said, that gas stops were not allowed. Therefore, he changed the manifest. So, he and I were both given the route by the transporter, and Mike Amherst had changed his, but I did not change mine and included the gas stop. Now, the question on this issue is, Mike Amherst also said that he talked with Amanda Stonecipher for a long time, and I wanted, is Amanda on the phone now?
Investigator Stonecipher, are you on the phone?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, very good, thank you.
No, Amanda, the question is whether it was discussed, the admission yesterday from Mike Amherst, whether you had understood that he had made a change on the gas stop. Was that discussed with you and Mike?
Well, Mr. Collette, we're talking about your NOV. We're not talking about another NOV. So really, we are not, comparing apples and oranges or apples and apples. One NOV for one licensee has nothing to do with the NOV to another licensee. It appears in your letter, what you are saying is that the transporter developed the route and gave you that route by email, which you then put into your transport manifest in metric. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and the Investigator Stonecipher, just really quickly, give us your thoughts here about the conflict. The conflict is between. Go ahead and kind of explain to us what you think you caught here.
Okay, so during the investigation on the other NOV, the other licensee, it was caught that there was these two manifests that were conflicting. And with that, it made it very unclear to me as far as how and where the products were being transported to and from, and in what vehicle and what driver. There was some very obviously missing pieces in both of the manifests, and they didn't correlate. It was the same transporter, DeBron Hellings, and as I explained to Mr. Collette when I gave him a notice violation, ultimately the manifest is his responsibility to do under regulation, not the transporters. It's 3A-306-750, the transport regulation specifically outlines that he is responsible for it. And not only that, there's some concerns that arise from that on his end, I would think, because he, as a licensee, would reasonably want to know where his product is and how it's being transported and where it's going to be, since he's responsible for it until it reaches its final destination. And the other portion of that is if the transporter had been stopped by a law enforcement agency and saw two conflicting manifests, it could hold up the transporter until they got a hold of us or the licensees and rectified and figured out what the situation was. It's not far-fetched. We have had law enforcement agencies seize not licensed products, but other marijuana products from personal people. So, to avoid any of that for our licensees, it's in their best interest to make sure that the manifests are accurate and not solely rely on the transporter's email. They need to make sure that there is a understanding between them and the transport companies that there will be a route, and that route will be stuck to, and it will be clearly indicated on the manifest sheet to save them all a bunch of headaches. And with these two manifests, it did not happen. It was very, very, very conflicting information.
Okay, so
this case, and this actually kind of does relate to the previous NOV, the way our regulations are written and the way logistics actually work in the state are conflicting here, in my opinion. So it is the responsibility of the licensee to make the route, but this particular company, CanTest, they provide the vessel for getting all of the marijuana, not all, but most of the marijuana on the road system to be tested. They have a service where they go around and they provide a route. And so functionally for 20 different licensees to say, this is the route you're going to take, this is the route you're going to take, this is the route you're going to take, the transport company or the transporter for CanTest is going to say, well, no, actually, this is the route I need to take to make it be able to happen with the least number of stops. And so, granted, it looks like they did get their paperwork wrong, but I can see this sort of thing continuing to happen and more NOVs occurring in the future because the system here is so very strict for what's actually a pretty simple process.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I could summarize, first of all, there appear to be 4 issues with this particular, in this particular NOV and with this manifest. One, that the route from After Horticulture and Research to Rose Creek Farm was not documented. 2, that the route from the Anchorage Airport to CanTest was not there. 3, that the vehicle was not written on the manifest. And then 4, the discrepancy with the gas station. The discrepancy with the gas station has been explained. That really is more of an issue with the other licensee. But those other 3 issues are problems with this manifest. And while Mr. Emmett's point is well taken, I think we need a route, and then the transporter, if it's not the agent of the licensee, needs to work with the licensee so that the route is on there. And if it's the transporter says, well, this is the route I'm going to take, they do need to communicate that with the licensee, and the licensee needs to have it on the manifest. So I think there are 3 significant issues that remain with this particular manifest.
I just wanted to say I agree with the director that there are other issues involving this manifest. And I want to reiterate what I said yesterday, that if a licensee has access before that marijuana or product is accepted, they have the ability to change their manifest in metric to reflect which route's being taken, if that's being changed, and they need to work with their transporter on that. It's imperative that the route be documented properly, because if they were to be stopped by law enforcement outside of that route, that would be documented, and that would be a big violation there. And the most important thing is licensee safety. If they don't make it from point A from point B, we only have one thing that we can go by, and that's what's uploaded in metric as to which route they would have taken. And maybe as simple as a flat tire down a gravel road where we go and we may be the ones who send somebody to go look. I would hope that's not true, but that's one reason. Another is just it needs to be documented how that marijuana is going to be traveling. It's very strict. As was stated yesterday, that the board, if I heard correctly, considers that the vessel, that a vehicle is an extension of the premises, and we need to know where that is at all times. So I just
Mr. Chairman?
make those points.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Collette?
Yes, this is Mr. Collette. Ms. McConnell raised 4 points. I'd like to address one of them, the anomaly concerning the lack of vehicle information on the manifest I supposedly wrote up. I checked this morning on Metric, called up the manifest, and the vehicle information is there in full. I don't know how that escaped Ms. Stonesider or not, but it's there on my computer and supposedly in the cloud.
This is investigator in reference to that, there is a vehicle documented on there. However, that is a vehicle that clearly was used after the vehicle or the transporter landed in Anchorage to continue on in Anchorage. The two vehicles that potentially were used here in Fairbanks, it was not clear as to where the product was located and in which vehicle it was located to be transported from Mr. Collette's place over to Rosie Creek place. That information wasn't there. So there was a secondary vehicle that was not documented. So that there in itself the manifest is incomplete.
Okay, so investigator Stonesider, what you're saying is that one vehicle went to, pardon me, to Esther Horticultural Research, and then at some point the individual doing the transport changed vehicles and went out to Rosie Creek, and then to the airport. Is that what you're saying?
That's the part that is unclear for the manifest. Like I said, there's no clear documentation as far as which vehicle was used to get from point A, which was Ezra Horticulture and Research, to B and C, which was Rosie Creek Farms, and then on to the airport. The two manifests did not clearly indicate which vehicle was being used and by whom. Who was the driver? Who was the transporter? It led me to believe potentially that the transporters were the licensees originally, and that they met the transporter company at the airport. At first glance at it. Of course, that's not the case, but when you compare them side by side, that's the original appearance of it.
Okay, well, we're kind of blind here because we don't have copies of these manifests. I think next time we get an NOV like this involves certainly a metric document that is, a component of the NOV. We help us see that. Again, we don't necessarily take action on an NOV. We leave it on the table for the director and enforcement to mull over. So, Mr. Collette, do you have anything further to add beyond your piece of correspondence and the comments that you've made so far?
Yes, only one minor detail, and that is that in the metric system, when you call up a previous entered name, metric may very well grab the vehicle information from the previous trip. So, without even thinking about it, it could fill in those details, which, and the transporter had used multiple vehicles over multiple trips, and that could be the cause of the error.
Okay, well, I would just suggest, very well might, if I was a licensee that had an NOV, that very well might be at least partially the result of some kind of maybe even an engineering issue at Metric, I'd be calling Metric and saying, hey, look, this is how this works. You know, I mean, how does information move between one document and another? And I mean, I guess I'd say it would be in the best interest of anybody that has an NOV that originates partially, at least, from a Metric issue to call Metric. And perhaps, you know, AMCO should do the same thing and get some analysis on this. Okay, if you said your piece on this, Mr. Collette, then I think we're going to move on.
Yes, I'm done. Thank you for your time.
All right, well, thank you. Okay, is your client here? Very good. Come on up. And introduce yourselves.
Jason Brett, I'm the attorney for Great.
Hey, good morning. Go ahead.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to respond to this NOV. I think what we wanted to do here was take an opportunity to try to clarify what essentially what the interpretation of the regulations are. We had a few concerns with the NOV. Generally, or shortly speaking, I guess the two main concerns are that we felt that the specific regulations that contained alleged violations didn't line up precisely with the facts, and then the other issue we had was an interpretation of the regulations regarding whether or not every unit of prepackaged marijuana that appeared that was delivered to a retail store needed to be weighed by the retail store upon delivery. And as explained in our response, we believed that there was some inconsistency between what was the specific regulations that were alleged to be violated, and our interpretation was that packages of marijuana that were prepackaged and delivered to a retail store did not need to be weighed again immediately upon delivery. That's based on our interpretation of the regulations that state that marijuana delivered to a store must be weighed. It doesn't specify who has to weigh it, when it has to be weighed, just that it must be weighed at some point along the product supply chain.
So the product there.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. On that point, I know you attend a lot of our meetings, and we spent considerable amount of time on other NOVs and other issues where there's been a discrepancy between an inventory and metric. Oftentimes that's explained by the licensee, usually at a retail level, that it was drying, so it was losing weight. They weren't sure that they got exactly what they ordered from the cultivator or the manufacturer. No, they didn't weigh it when it showed up, so they had no idea except what the manufacturer or cultivator said, this is how much I'm giving you. If they were 5 ounces less, they had no idea that it was 5 ounces less, but then it would show up in a discrepancy. So we've had lots of discussions, and I think this board's been pretty clear that we are interpreting the regulations that when you get a product from somebody else and you sign for it and it says it's a pound, well, you should weigh it to see if you got 1 pound 1 ounce or if you got 14 ounces, because that, once it's in your inventory, then you're responsible for the fact that we go in and we find 14 ounces on the shelf and metric says you got 17 ounces. So I don't disagree. I sort of question some of the same things on yours, but in terms of interpretation, I think we've been pretty clear that you get a product, you need to weigh it, because sooner or later there's going to be a discrepancy if in fact there is a loss of weight due to drying out or whatever. So it avoids problems in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jones. If I can respond to that, I would agree that ultimately a retailer is responsible if there's a discrepancy, and it may be good business practice to take the time and effort to weigh every single prepackaged unit that comes in. But I think there's a distinction between what would be good business practice and the best way to cabin off the possibility of risk down the road, and what is strictly required by the regulations. If the board is requiring every single prepackaged marijuana item that comes into a retail store to be weighed, I don't believe that that's the interpretation that a large number of people in the industry share. After receiving this notice of violation, I spoke with a number of other retailers who all seemed surprised that they were
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
packaged packages of marijuana that come in. I also think it's important to consider what is strictly required by the regulations and what would make for good business practice. And I think it certainly, again, is good business practice to weigh things and make sure that it's coming, but I don't know that that's necessarily required. Another thing that I think is really critical here, and it's a point that you mentioned, is that when you are getting deliveries from another entity, that there's maybe more of a risk that there might be some discrepancy. And in this case here, we have a licensee that is vertically integrated, so a lot of the product that they're receiving at their retail store are things that they produced and packaged and weighed at their cultivation facility. And it does seem quite burdensome to have a licensee have to weigh the individual packages at their cultivation facility, package them, and then weigh them again upon receipt at the retail store. Yeah, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, reading this, she said, I asked the if Great Northern Cannabis had been using a scale to weigh the incoming marijuana product, and she advised that they had not, because it all came packages previously weighed by the cultivator, and the scale had not been giving accurate weight readings, and then this is a violation of. So, if this is the interpretation of enforcement, then we have an issue again in what is written and what is functional. Because if we're going to allow prepackaged marijuana to be sold, then we have to have a wide acceptable range of tare weights over the course of however many packages. Because I can tell you in my facility, we order bags, blister packs, borosilicate glass jars, labels, stickers, all of which can go into a single free package. Now the marijuana product that goes inside of that jar with the sticker, with the label, with the blister pack, now that's weighed by one of the certified scales. And if you open the packages and enforcement were to go and weigh them all over and over and over again, they could see, okay, these are definitely weighed. But the tare weights on a lot of these packages and glass jars can vary a lot depending on what manufacturing facility they came from, what how much the print is on, what brand of label was used, what jar was used. Even though they're all the same, if they came from a different press or they came from a different company, they could have different weights. And so you could take one box of 100 prepackaged grams of marijuana that have packages that were accepted by this board from one company, and then the same 100 from different manufacturers, and you're going to get a range of weights. And so you'd have to tear that package, then weigh them all, then do some sort of a calculation and say, okay, this is reasonably in the ballpark of what it is. But so as it's written here, it's not functional to make prepackaged marijuana have to be weighed when it gets to the receiving facility.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before we start getting into tare weights, which I think is an important discussion, I wanted to make 2 points based on what Mr. Brandeis said. Weighing marijuana when it is received at a retail store is, as stated, important to protect the retailer, to make sure that if there is any discrepancy that shows up later, the retailer can show, this is exactly what we got from the cultivator or the product manufacturer. But it is also important to prevent diversion. And that was an element of the Cole memo that these regulations were based on. And an actor who wanted to behave badly, and I am in no way implying that the licensee was but an actor who wanted to behave badly and divert marijuana through the transport process, take out a little bit here and there. I mean, this is a way, this is an opportunity for that. And so assuring that the weight of the marijuana that left the cultivator or the product manufacturer is the same weight that is received by the retailer is an important way to track our seed-to-sale tracking system to prevent diversion. The other thing is that there's nothing in here that says treat prepackaged product differently from deli-style product. So maybe the board wants to change it in that way, but it doesn't. There's no distinction in the regulation, so there's no reason for any licensees to think, oh, we get to treat this type of product differently from that type of product.
Mr. Chair, I thought about this quite a bit, and I think that maybe you guys are in the same state that I was initially, and I think it's being overthought. I think that, number one, the transportation regulation 750 clearly says that when a marijuana establishment receives marijuana or a marijuana product transported in compliance with this section, the recipient of the shipment shall use a marijuana inventory tracking system to report the type, amount, and weight of the marijuana or marijuana product received. I think that's pretty clear. But with that being said, I understand that it might sound, the way we're breaking it down sounds burdensome. But after talking about it and thinking about it, I think there's a simple way to do it. If you're going to package 1,000 grams of prepackaged marijuana, get those, and I've been to many operations where they get the packages ready, they label them, and all they need to do is open them up and heat seal them. Get your 1,000 packages, weigh those packages, go in, package them, weigh it again, a bulk weight, minus the package weight, then you got your marijuana weight. It's overthinking. I think that once you have the bulk weight noted on the manifest, the receiving end can note that bulk weight is exactly what you noted that as. I think that's the simplest way to do it. I think looking at a regulation change or treating prepackaged marijuana differently from bulk deli-style marijuana is not the way to go. I think there's an extra step that needs to be taken that has a little bit extra thought, and they need to know how much they're going to be packaging, which from what I understand is not out of the ordinary for them to know how many they're going to be packaging and transporting to another licensee. I think it's as simple as them weighing out the packages prior to them weighing them when they're filled.
Mr. Chair. So, and I agree with you, Chief. So, question is for the licensee though, when they weigh it coming in, are they actually weighing the marijuana, or are they weighing the bulk packages and then just relying on the shipping facility to have the proper weight? Unless they're tearing open the packages, pouring it out, they're not actually weighing the marijuana. They're going off of the bulk weight that they're getting on the manifest from the facility, which is what most of these facilities do. And that's what mine does. We actually don't even include the weight of the packages because they can vary. We include the weight of the marijuana. And we have a really, strict inventory control system to make sure that the marijuana that's going into those is. So, I mean, that's something that facilities like mine or other prepackaged facilities, like some of the large cultivators do. They could include, like, okay, this is what we reasonably believe the bulk weight of the entire package to be, and this is the weight of your marijuana. But really, the retailer would just copy and paste that. There's no way for them to weigh it and see. That's what I'm getting at,
Yeah, I think there are some simple ways to go around. The bottom line on the requirement is, as the director stated, is to prevent diversion. If you're getting 1,000 grams coming in, and I don't know if you spend your time, but you're certainly going to want to know that it's all there. I think that this is something that could be maybe an advisory that it would be prudent business practice for a cultivator who is selling prepackaged marijuana to indicate on the manifest somewhere that this is the weight of one package, and then it's pretty simple math. Take it out of the box, put it on the scale, however many time, and weigh it, and then just subtract the amount of the packaging weight, and there you have it. So you're not weighing each individual package. I think that some retailers, when they label, right, they're putting identifying information on their label, on their pricing that's on the package. Does anybody have a scale that's connected to the labeling system? But again, the bottom line here is to make sure there's no diversion going on. And I think the chief is right that a little long division will help you figure out pretty approximately how much product, how much actual marijuana you received.
Thank you. And I think we certainly agree preventing diversion is a paramount concern. I think what we're seeing here is a situation that, as the industry develops, in practice, sometimes regulations that, we might have regulations that conflict with one another or are intended to clarify one another, and they might not. And this is certainly an opportunity for the board to provide some advisory guidance to the industry about what we need to do in practice to comply with the regulations. And Chief Holster makes a good point about, he cited the regulation 306-750E, where it says that upon receipt, the shipment, the weight of the marijuana or marijuana product received will be entered. But again, that sort of begs the question, who was supposed to be weighing it, right? And again, weighing every cartridge that comes in or every edible that comes in is burdensome and may not be accurate. So I think you have a regulation like that to record the weight, but then we look elsewhere in the regulations to determine when was it supposed to be weighed and who. Does that mean that it's weighed upon receipt, or does that mean you record the weight that was provided to you? But I would also point out that particular regulation was not an alleged violation in this NOV. So, I think that gets to one of the other issues that we raised, which is that the specific allegations in this particular NOV don't necessarily line up with the regulations that we are accused of violating.
Mr. Chair.
Sir.
And I don't disagree, but this is a different industry than lots of others, and at the retail level, you're basically accepting a product from somebody else that you're going to sell to a consumer. And, if I, from how many years ago was this? 60 years ago when I was working in grocery stores in Montana, produce truck would pull up. We didn't weigh everything, but there was a lot of produce we rejected. We did not accept, so we would change the manifest just simply because we weren't going to accept the crate of rotten tomatoes because we were selling that to the public. Restaurants do that all the time. I would assume that a retailer is making a visual inspection of the product. If I ordered 1,000 pre-rolls, I would want to count that I get 1,000. Or half of them are busted apart. Do I see any mold? Before I sign that I accept this? I don't know if Metric has the ability of, cultivator says I'm sending you 1,000 pre-rolls and you can put in there, I only accepted 900 because 100 was bad. But it seems to me some good business practices, there's a lot of things that a retailer would need to do before they sign that they accepted that particular product. Because it's going to be their reputation if they sell a bad product to a consumer. And weight may be one of them, but, visualization and an actual count. So if you're getting 1,000 grams in 1 gram packages, I'd assume retailers taking some time to make sure that they don't have 990, that they have 1,000 packages. So I see where this is at, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I think there's some really standard business practices for retailers that are going to be selling to consumers a product that needs to be clean and a product that, in and of itself, because of whatever, will not harm the person purchasing it. So, anyway, that's my speech for now.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
sorry, if I could make one additional point. I don't think the regulations are as unclear as Mr. Brandeis is alleging, because if you look at 730B, it says, marijuana delivered to a marijuana establishment must be weighed on a scale registered in compliance with 386306745. And he's saying, well, if it was weighed at a cultivation facility, it meets that standard. But I would argue that it does not. It's not marijuana must be weighed on a scale registered in compliance, but it's a specific type of marijuana, and the type of marijuana is marijuana delivered to a marijuana establishment. So when it's at the cultivation facility, it hasn't yet been delivered to the retail store, and so it wouldn't qualify here. It's just weighted at the cultivation facility.
Yeah, I actually disagree, Director. I think in this case, in prepackaged marijuana, it's ambiguous because logically, you're not going to open the package up and dump it out on a scale. I think if the way it's written, you could interpret it one of two ways, but I think people that are buying a bulk package of marijuana to do deli style would logically say, okay, I want to weigh this again and make sure. But people who are trusting their provider that is providing them prepackaged marijuana, that the weights are accurate, are not going to be able to weigh each one. And I think a reasonably prudent person would feel the same way. It's like our strict interpretation of the regulation is not functional here. So I can see other licensees running into this same issue with prepackaged marijuana.
The term delivered, is pretty specific tense. It doesn't say for delivery to. It says delivered. So that, at least in my mind, implies responsibility on the part of the recipient. As Chief Holscher said, it's not a matter of cracking open every prepackaged item and weighing it. It's, knowing what the bulk weight is and then taking out the weight. What I would like to say about NOVs in general to everybody is, we're not taking the action on them. Maybe no action will be taken, or maybe something will. But I think as we go along, I know nobody likes getting them, but what they do for both for the board, I think, for the staff, and for licensees, they create kind of a good, for the most part, a friendly dynamic between the recipient, staff, and us. It brings issues up that, we knew 2 years ago when we started writing these regulations that there would be a lot of unintended consequences. We wrote the regulations blind. Nobody had any experience in, commercial marijuana sales in Alaska and cultivation. So the NOVs, and this has been pointed out both by the directors, and by enforcement, are in a lot of cases instructive and sometimes cautionary tale. So, do we have anything else to add on this one?
I would like to ask Mr. Holscher a question, if that's okay. He's all relaxed now. So, when you go into a store to do an inventory, and you go into a store that does prepackaged, and they say they have 50 grams, and it's 51-gram packages, do you count those packages, or do you weigh them?
Well, we haven't done anything similar to that yet. What we do is we're doing it by count. We're verifying visually that it's there. And this was done off the assumption that the retailer weighed it when they received it. Now, I don't want to destroy somebody's packaged product by ripping open the heat seal, dumping it out, and opening it up, because that costs the licensee money. And out of respect, we haven't done that.
And I guess it was a kind of a facetious question that maybe we should change our regulations, because I'm just saying.
Certainly a possibility. Certainly a possibility.
To not weigh prepackaged?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, I purchase bulk, so I don't have this problem, thank God, right? But what I would say is this, if I were to purchase prepackaged product from a cultivator, there's a business arrangement there, and if I'm buying 100 grams and he puts it in 100 packages and it comes to my store, and I can reasonably pick them up and look at them and count them because I have experience with marijuana and say, yeah, that's about a gram per package, or 100 packages, that's 100 grams. I think that's where we need to get. You know, to say that we're trying to stop diversion en route, you know, we're talking about how it is to open it up and weigh each individual package. I couldn't imagine a guy trying to sit in the back of his car trying to open 100 packages, remove 1/10 of a gram, and then seal them all back up and get them to the retailer. It's not practical. So we have to have regulations that are practical, and I guess that's the point I'm trying to make is nobody wants a new regs project. I sure don't. But if we're going to start issuing NOVs for businesses who are counting packages instead of weighing 1,000 of them, then we need to change the regs because, you know, we're wasting Mr. Holscher's and his team's time, or we're wasting retailers' time. So that's my point, that it's not practical, and it is a business, and you know, we have professional relationships, and if you don't trust a cultivator you're purchasing from, that he's putting a full 1 gram in there, then maybe you shouldn't be doing business with him.
Mr. Chair, through the chair in response, no other state separates or differentiates deli style between packaged. They use the bulk weight. As talking with Metric, every state that they deal with bulk weights. And I think, again, it is a matter of just weighing the prepackaged before you actually weigh the marijuana. I think there might be in some cases where you may be weighing some things that kind of expand or weigh more than what the scale can weigh, then weigh them at 100 at a time. I mean, there's a practical way to do this, and I think that the board also, please understand that during transport of your marijuana and marijuana product that we are regulating is the most subjective time when diversion can occur. There's no camera coverage. There's no requirement for a licensee to be to transport it. It can be an agent of. We don't regulate who is in the vehicle. Now, you talk about practicality. I mean, in all terms of all the crimes I looked into over the years, a lot of times people who want to do things against the law do not do things that are practical. They go out of their way to do impractical things. So you talk about, when you say you can't imagine somebody on a transport opening up 1,000 grams prepackaged marijuana with a little heat sealer to reseal them in the back, pulling out little tweezer folds at the back, you say you can't envision it, but I can easily envision it. And I just want to caution that is the most imperative time for diversion when we don't have that camera coverage and we don't regulate, we regulate, but there's a big difference between the standalone premises and the vehicle. So I wanted to bring that up.
Mr. Chair. Yeah. And so I do agree with Chief Holscher that criminals will do impractical things. But I've stated this before, we can't have different standards for our team and for the industry. If we say that it is acceptable for enforcement to check weights of prepackaged marijuana by counting them, then we have to have an even standard. We can't have a double standard and say, you know, we're going to hold the licensees to a higher level of scrutiny because they're a marijuana business, and then our enforcement team, because they're cops, they get a pass. You know, it's got to be the same. If enforcement can count prepackaged marijuana and verify that they have 100 grams, then the licensees need to be able to count prepackaged marijuana and say there's 100 grams. We're going to require they have a weight, and we have to require enforcement to have a weight. You know, and I don't want to argue the merits of either or, but it's got to be consistent and it's got to be realistic.
I just want to remind the board, we're not the licensees. We're not the ones being regulated. We're there as a tool for you guys to look into things. And I understand where you say that there can't be a double standard, but that's exactly what you're arguing when you say that prepackaged marijuana doesn't have to be weighed and deli style does. There's a double standard there. So I think there's an easy fix to this, and if the director seems fit that when we do an audit, if we spot check and we open up packages and you just call it cost of doing business that we're opening up and we're destroying a package that you have to repackage, then we can do that. I do believe that there needs to be consistency, and I'm not asking for a free pass because we're the ones looking into it, but if we're looking at the way that the marijuana, if it's lost at the cultivation level, what good is our tracking system? I mean, if we're not taking weights at the retail and we're not taking weights when we do the audit, then we're relying completely on the cultivator level, and that's not a good practice. I would agree with that.
Well, Mr. Holscher, when we count that there are 100 1-gram packages, are we certifying that they have 100 grams, or are we saying, okay, their number of packages matches what shows in metric as the number of packages they're supposed to have? I mean, I'm not sure we're actually attesting to the weight, but we're saying, we don't see enough of a problem to spend more time on that particular issue.
And that is correct, that we are verifying what's in metric. The weights can be different from drying. What they receive to when we inspect can be months, and they could have water weight loss. So if we weighed it and it was reduced and it wasn't documented by the retailer, then there would also be an issue there. So I feel like we might be chasing our tails here.
Well, we're not issuing NOVs for not having enough weight when we haven't weighed anything.
Correct.
So I don't quite see that it's a double standard.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The point of the NOV is that as far as enforcement is concerned, something was not weighed that was supposed to be weighed. So we are getting kind of tangential on. I don't see how you can have water weight loss as a sealed package. I'm not a physicist, so. Okay, so we talked about this one enough?
Almost, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go right ahead.
I think there are two issues here. One is who does the weighing, and the other is how is the calibration done, how is it weighed. So I think as to the first question, there's a really easy fix. In 730B, the board could simply insert the words by the receiving licensee. That would solve problem number one. Problem number two is a little bit trickier, and I do tend to think that there's some sense to Mr. Emmett's argument that we need to have, if not the same standard, at least it needs to be predictable and followable and understandable by licensees. So I think that's a harder issue for the board to address, and maybe later on. But in the meantime, I do see a way, fairly simple way, to clear up the question that's brought to this particular licensee here, which is who does the weighing. And yes, I think you could look at this statement, marijuana delivered, that's the past tense, to a marijuana establishment. I think you could read that to say, yes, past tense, if it's delivered, then of course it's a marijuana, receiving marijuana establishment that has to do the weighing. But the fact that we spent an hour on it, I think, suggests that it is subject to differing interpretations. And again, I suggest it is fairly easy fix for that.
Right, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make a couple of final comments here. Again, Ms. Milk's suggestions are really good, and ultimately what we're here looking for is guidance. We want to be told what to do. Mr. Jones' point about good business practices is well taken. I agree. If I was running a business, I would want to know exactly what was in every package. But if I'm not required to weigh every package, I might not do so. So if the board wants to require certain business practices, if the board says these are the best practices for the industry, this is what we want you to do, that needs to be clearly reflected in the regulations. And if the board wants to issue, revise the regulations or issue some guidance or issue an interpretation following this meeting, I think that would be very well received by the industry. But that gets to another slightly different issue related, which is, what is the role of the NOV? Mr. Springer, you mentioned this is a conversation. Absolutely, this is really the only opportunity for licensees to sit with the board and discuss in a public forum about the law other than submitting comments and things like that, but we don't have the opportunity for back and forth with the comments. But an NOV is the second level of notification we could receive. And in a case like this where there does seem to be some confusion and an interpretation of the regulation, a notice of violation sounds like we violated something. And in a case like this, an investigation report might be, or in a case where there's confusion about a regulation, something less than an NOV might be appropriate. And that's particularly because you mentioned yesterday that NOVs cannot be vacated. Once there's an NOV, it's on the books, and oftentimes we don't receive any follow-up. If the board decides to take no action on an NOV, we've never received a statement of no further action on this. It just sort of goes away, I guess, because we don't know if there's a time limit. Right? Did they self-destruct at some point? We don't know. So I think that if there's a question about an interpretation, there's some dialogue that's needed, an NOV might not be the appropriate vehicle for doing that. We also would like to receive some sort of formal communication from the board if there is a decision that no further action is being taken. Having that documented, recorded, and put in the licensee's file would be appreciated.
Great, thanks. And just one quick thought that I had. If I was getting 1,000 grams of prepackaged marijuana, I would take 5 or 20 of them, weigh them individually, and so I've got 6 grams or 23 grams, and then weigh the whole bunch, and real quick if you get an issue. There's less of the specificity in the regulation about what constitutes what's being weighed. So let's keep that in mind also. But I would tend to think that it's prudent for a retailer to know how much quantity they are really receiving. It's a high-value product, a highly regulated product. If you do it that way, a little longer vision, what I just said, or the way Chief Holster suggested it, you are covering yourself. You're able to compare that to your manifest, your receipt, from the cultivator, and I would hope that when you get audited by enforcement, they would come up with the same number. So, okay.
I did one final question, and I guess what are we supposed to do now? I guess what I'm asking is the NO, what is the guidance today? Is the NO the interpretation?
You better get a new scale, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you got a program to weigh your incoming product?
Yes, sir. We touch every package that comes in. Count every unit, and we do daily inventory counts.
Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you. Sure.
I just want to clarify, enforcement has no intention of bringing this forward as an accusation, if that's what they want to hear. So I believe, after discussion with the director, we both feel the same on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we were going to, time we got here, 10 o'clock. Sure. 50 minutes? 10 minutes? What do you think? All right. There you go. pick up again here. Get a little order in the room. Thank you. Yeah, paper clip. Get everybody here. Okay, and obviously we're trying to pick the pace up just a little bit. So we are now on tab 7, which is a civil fine request from Corey and Kendra Ray regarding the Cannabis Classic. So I will hand it to the director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The fourth annual Alaska Cannabis Classic was held in Anchorage on May 19th. It was from 6 to 9 p.m. at 420 West Avenue. The event organizers are Corey and Kendra Ray, who, as far as I can tell, appear to live in Oregon. There are two issues that I wish to raise before the board. The first is that the Cannabis Classic includes a petition for best products in a variety of categories, and normally when a competition is set up, the organizers, get a limited number of judges, maybe they get celebrity judges, something like that. But in this situation, the Rays sell judgeships, some number, it's a limited number, but I don't know how limited it is. They advertise that anybody can sign up for a judgeship, and then all you have to do is take a class, some sort of class that they have set up, and you pay $350. And for this $350, you get 28 grams of flower and 15 grams of concentrate. If they had said, we have selected 3 Anchorage people, maybe even board members or industry members, from the industry association or something like that, to say, these are the 3 judges that we want to have in this competition, this would not be an issue. But because they are opening it to everybody to pay them in order to get this quantity of marijuana, that is selling marijuana, and they obviously do not have a license. So they've been told in the past that they can't do this, they continue to do it, and so I'm requesting that the board assess a civil penalty of $10,000 for selling marijuana without a license. Shall I stop here?
Sure. I just want to put on the record, yes, if someone wants to give me a free judgeship to a legal cup, I'd be more than willing. But so I spoke with High Times about their cannabis cup, and they said that this cup and the way the judgeships are organized and are basically bought is not how the cannabis cup, which is kind of the world accepted standard for cannabis awards. They said most places it's required to be some sort of a volunteer. Because I asked them about that. They're considering doing a cup up here. And that's one of the first things I asked, like, okay, well, are you guys selling judgeships because that doesn't comply with our regulations? They said, no, they don't do that. Anywhere they do cups, it's not standard, and they're surprised these guys did it. So definitely the way they ran this is kind of outside the what's considered the standard by High Times, at least.
Okay. Go ahead.
Shall I move on to the second issue? Okay. So the second issue is that approximately a week before the event, we learned that the Rays were advertising a bake-off competition where individuals who wanted to participate in this competition would bake infused edibles in a variety of categories, and they would bring these edibles to the event. The attendee of the event would get 5 tickets. So first of all, they did apparently select some judges for those edibles for the contest. But then also, any attendee at the event would get 5 tickets for them to pay a ticket to get an edible. So they would get 5 edibles to consume at the event in order to vote on a People's Choice Award that would be issued at the end of the evening. The Rays were contacted and told not only that the bake-off competition was not legal, as that would basically be allowing public consumption, but that there could be no public consumption at this event. So the Rays and the board had discussed a temporary restraining order on the event. So the Rays did change their website and instruct people who were going to enter this competition not to infuse their goods with marijuana. are at the event, many individuals openly consumed marijuana, not through edible form, but through smoke. And there was a mobile trimming service there called Bushwhackers and Hackers that was demonstrating their pre-roll packing machine. At the event, packaged approximately 100 joints, which the demonstrators then lit and handed out to people in the crowd. And there's a number of photos that you could see of people consuming marijuana at the event that were posted on their Facebook page. So despite being clearly informed that there could be no on-site consumption at the event, the Rays made no apparent effort to prevent this. And so I request that the board assess them a civil fine of $1,000 for allowing and encouraging violations of 1730-040, which prohibits public consumption.
Okay, thanks. Looking through, I mean, are the Rays here? Are they on the phone?
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Yes. Kendra here. This is Kendra.
All right.
So I'd like to
say we have a license and public. Where is that?
It is a couple blocks that way of the site of where Potluck event was, the Cannabis Social Club.
Okay, somebody grabbed something there. Typing, yeah. If that's not Ms. Ray or Corey, please mute your phone. Okay, so Ms. Ray, you've been contacted by the office, received this correspondence, the proposed civil fine?
Yeah, okay, so the first thing I wanted to know is that Corey is not on the phone call right now because he's traveling, so he might be able to join us at some point, but I'm not sure. So it's just me at the moment. We just found out yesterday the amount of the fine that you're requesting to impose, which is like way more severe than we had anticipated or ever thought would be possible. So we didn't have a chance we didn't talk to a lawyer or anything about it since we didn't realize it was going to be a $20,000 fine. So we would have ended up paying our lawyer more to defend us than it would have cost for the fine. So I'm not sure if you guys are planning on leaving today to impose a fine or not, or if we'll have an opportunity to, defend ourselves or whatnot. But if so, I wanted to definitely address a couple of those points. Are you guys going to vote on it today, or do you want me to address what I would like to say?
We do have it on our agenda. I don't see any reason why we couldn't act on it.
Mr. Chair, so for the Rays' benefit here, for some clarification, do you think that Ms. Mills might be able to explain how the process might proceed if we did decide to levy the fine against them today? It sounds like Kendra might not quite understand how our proceedings happen here and appeals and that sort of a thing in the state of Alaska.
Certainly, and through the chair, you certainly can act on this today and impose a fine. You can impose the fine the director suggests or another fine that you think is as appropriate as it needs to be. She will have appeal rights. She can appeal that fine. Alternatively, you can always table it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Mills.
Well, in that case, thanks for the explanation. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to address. The first regarding the judging portion of the event. We don't believe that we're selling cannabis in any way. We've been providing education in Alaska for a long time, long before the Cannabis Classic existed, through the Alaska Cannabis Institute, where we did educational seminars. The Classic judging experience is an extension of our mission to educate people in Alaska about cannabis. We don't sell weed, we sell education. It says on our website, as part of your guys' exhibits there, that when you're signing up to be a judge, yes, any member of the public can sign up to be a judge, as long as they're over 21, but that they're paying for the judge's certification course they're paying for an experience, you get the free samples as part of your judging course. So in order to be eligible to receive the free judges kit, all applicants have to take the course and pass an exam with a minimum of 80%. Some people apply to be judges, they pay, they don't pass their tests, and they don't get their kit. I read in the paper the other day that a gram of weed sells for like $18 in Anchorage. So if we were selling weed and our kits, came with 28 grams of product in them, which we don't do 28 grams and 15 grams of concentrates, but even if our kits just had 28 grams of flour in them, then we could be charging well over $500 for those kits, and we don't. We sell them for $350, no matter what state we're in, no matter how many products is in there. It's $350 because they're paying for the judge's course, and you get the product for free. So we don't believe that we're selling weed. We believe that we're selling education. So in terms of public consumption, in advance of the event, we did receive notification that the bake-off was not going to be allowed as we had originally planned. So we had conversations with Harriet Milk and Robert Schmidt in advance of the event, and they explained, what we had to do to be in compliance, that we couldn't do the bake-off, with infused edibles. And so we did a number of things that they requested, including adding specific wording to our website, our Facebook event page, taking down any ads that implied that cannabis would be consumed on site, etc. We also contacted the bake-off contestants and told them not to put cannabis in their samples. We did our best to make this year's event compliant. In the past, we've had much larger events at municipal-owned properties like Denina and Sullivan, and that always seemed to be the biggest issue, was that it was a public event, it was on municipal property, we couldn't have public consumption. This year, we made it a point to scale down the event. We found a private venue, invited industry people. It was advertised to our database only. We didn't take out newspaper articles or TV commercials or radio commercials like we've done in past years. We basically just invited industry people to the event on private property. We had a Facebook page for the event, and that was pretty much the extent of the advertising that we did. So we did our best to adjust the event to comply with rules as they are. If there would have been a license or something that we could have applied for, we would have done that. But in terms, we did the best that we could do. We're a mom and pop operation. We have two twin 2-year-old daughters. We're not trying to come in and break all the rules and give the industry a bad name. We thought we were doing the right thing. It was a smaller event, private venue. No one from the public probably even knew that we existed, that we were even up there. We covered all the windows with our signage. We didn't advertise to the public. We didn't tell attendees that they could consume. And we can't control what everyone does. I think I was in the back room the whole entire time working on other stuff, but I didn't even see bushwhackers doing that. But at the end of the day, we like coming to Alaska. We like doing this event. We've done, 5 competition events in Alaska. We want to be part of the community, and we do these events up and down the West Coast. But we started in Alaska, and it's our favorite event usually to do. So we're proud of the events that we put on there, and we don't want to just continue to do that. We want to have our daughters be able to have a relationship with Alaska too. I don't know. The $20,000 fine is just crazy. I don't know. It's hard to swallow. So sorry for rambling.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, please.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate Ms. Ray's comments. Just for the public's edification of the boards as well, Rob Schmidt is an Assistant Attorney General in my office. Both Rob and I spoke with Corey Ray, and we were very, very clear that there could be no consumption of any kind, not just eating edibles, there could be no consumption, period. We were never contacted in advance for an opinion as to whether this venue was public or not. Rob and I both made it very clear to the Rays that this was a situation where public consumption was invited and it couldn't happen. I also noticed on the FAQs, and I guess their website is the attachment to the director's memo, that it says this year judges will also get early entry to the bake-off portion of the event in order to judge all edible samples. So I didn't know about that before, but evidently in addition to the smokable product, the judges were invited to sample the edible products. But in any event, my point is simply that there was no question in the communications between my office and the Rays that there could be no consumption, period.
Thanks, Ms. Milks. Ms. Ray, I know that Corey isn't there, so you're kind of speaking for both of you. But this is Mark Springer. You certainly said a couple of things that I find were conflicting statements. When you're talking about the judges' kits, first you said, well, we're selling the certificate, and you said, we sell them for $350 the kit. You ran over how much is in it, how much it might cost cumulatively. You said we sell them for $350 in every state. And then again you said, but we're only selling the judge's certification. You also seem to make the point that you held an event in a municipally owned facilities, an IS center, and that there was an issue that public consumption was allowed there, and I seemed to gather from what you said that because of that, you scaled back the size of the event and moved it into a privately owned venue, which would imply to me that you were doing that to be able to at least allow consumption, and you intended to with the bake-off. So we've got a fairly clear definition of what public consumption is here in the state, and I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, think that you're aware of that, and you've indicated that you kind of wanted to circumvent that rather than just having a static display, vendor show with some, I don't know, bobbing for apples or something to give people something to do. So I'm concerned about your overall intent in what you're doing here and what you've said that you want to do here. Does anybody else on the board have any questions or comments they'd like to direct to Ms. Ray?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, while public consumption might not be, it might be clearly stated, what isn't clear to me is what constitutes a private and a public event. We didn't do advertising for this event. We contacted people who have signed up, opted into our email list. We were at a private venue. I don't know what makes it a public event.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Ray, I appreciate again the fact that you're on the phone and Corey is not. I spoke with Corey probably for close to an hour.
Hi, I'm here now.
Oh, you're on there. Okay, so when I spoke with Corey Ray on the phone, we talked about that, and we talked about the struggles that the board had with the potluck events kind of forum. We talked about the fact that there was an Attorney General opinion addressing this issue. And I thought Mr. Ray and I had a pretty good discussion about where the industry might be going in the future. We talked about how the board had considered on-site consumption, and again, there was an Attorney General opinion, but we just weren't there yet, that Alaska did not, at that time and at this time, have any regulated venue for public consumption. And there was no question in that conversation, and I will tell you that Mr. Ray seemed very sincere in his appreciation of that there was just at this time no way to allow public consumption in a venue like the venue that they had chosen. It was absolutely clear to him that this was contemplated to be what the board and the state considers to be public consumption, and it just couldn't happen.
Can I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
and I did speak with Mr. Schmidt and Ms. Milks about this, and we talked about specifically what she just mentioned, which was eventually there might be an event license that one could apply for. And so she laid out specifically what we needed to do, put it on our website, and we even went a step further. Not only did we put it all over our website, but we also put it in our, basically that everybody who comes into the event received a guidebook. And the very front page of the guidebook, it says everybody must comply with Alaska law. That means no consumption at this facility. I know there was a Nas concert this weekend. I know there's been plenty of concerts where people are lighting up and smoking and there's billows of clouds, and I can provide you pictures with that. I don't understand why we get treated differently than the other. We don't even have we didn't even have an alcohol license like Moose's Tooth does or Bear's Tooth does. When people, or Sea Galley, when they're having a reggae event and they're smoking in public. Like, all I'm at, like, we did everything that we could with the time that we had, because Ms. Milks contacted me, I believe it was the Monday before our event. And so we did everything that we could, including exactly what they said to do, in the time frame that was laid out to us, which was about 3 days. And so if we were doing something illegal, the cops could have came in there and they could have assessed everybody a $100 fine. But they didn't. And so now, after the fact, like, you guys are trying to assess us with a $20,000 fine, which I find excessive. Again, we're just a mom-and-pop operation that, I mean, $20,000 will bankrupt me. It's as easy as that. It'll ruin my kid's future. It'll ruin our future. Like, it'll ruin our lives. And we're not trying to do anything explicitly illegal or negative. We're just trying to build community. And we've been doing this for 5 years, and we thought, how can we best do this? Because people consume cannabis always, you know, in private venues. And so we thought, what's the best way that we can continue with our event and still respect what the MCB is doing and what everybody's trying to do? And so we took it completely out of the public light. We didn't run any TV commercials, no radio ads, no newspaper ads. We just invited people that were already in our database that have opted into our communications. And so it was an invite only at a private venue. And so we thought we had our bases covered. And maybe we're not the smartest people in the world, and maybe we were wrong, but I don't think being wrong should qualify a $20,000 fine. That's quite excessive. We didn't even get a warning. Like, I heard yesterday, everyone's, you know, talking about an NOV, a notice of violation. We don't even get NOVs. We just get hit with a $20,000 fine.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So, not getting a warning is not true. Not only did I send them a letter this year, but I have sent them letters in the past in a previous job. So they've been told multiple years that there can be no public consumption in this state. It wasn't a private event. Maybe they didn't advertise it to the public, but I happen to know at least one person who's not associated with the industry who attended.
Probably on our email list.
Nope, I don't think so.
Then how would they have gotten? How would they have known?
Because it's on Facebook.
In our group, somebody who subscribes to our Facebook page, so they're a fan, or they're following it, or they liked it, or they're a member of that.
No, a general member of the public. It was a public event, and we were informed that it was a public event. I could suggest I would suggest perhaps the board might want to consider assessing a large fine and suspending a percentage of that fine pending that would then come back to be assessed if they have future violations.
Okay, somebody's echoing. I'm not sure. I'm taking speaker. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Director. So the reason that you didn't get an NOV, the people who get notices of violation are licensees. What is being alleged here is that as non-licensees, you engaged in the sale of marijuana without a license, and that is within our bailiwick to enforce, and violation of consumption of public places also within our bailiwick to enforce. So I think that the director's got has an interesting suggestion. We'll take the phone offline for a minute just so we don't get any background noise.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Yeah, I would agree with the director. I would propose that we levy the fine with $15,000 suspended pending any future illegal activity by the Rays, and that we stipulate in there all items that have been forwarded to them in the past about what they can and cannot do be included in those stipulations.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Mr. Jones.
I just had one question. The product that you gave to the judges that you say you're not selling, where did you get that product? Did you purchase that product?
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Thank you. We received the product from the various competitors who enter, whether that's a private grower who grows at home, or it's a retail licensed grower who takes the product out of metric, purchases it from themselves, and then gives it to us. And then what we do is in the state of Alaska, you're allowed to give 28 grams of marijuana. And so that's what we do. We do not sell it. We give it. We offer education no different than a technical school, no different than Alaska Pacific University, where we've held our seminars before. That's the core of what we do. We educate people, and there's a lot of misinformation out there about cannabis, and one of the best ways to get educated is to participate. And so we have a platform in which people who want to learn more about the product, they come, they take our courses.
You answered my question. You were given the product from either a private person or from a licensed vendor, a licensee in Alaska who gave you the product, which I'm not exactly sure how that would show up in metric, but thank you. That answered my question.
And that's really sure, Mr. Jones. And so what Corey's describing there is partially what is like allowable at a trade show for someone, if someone was going to display a product. Like there was a cultivator that sold to a retailer, and the retailer sold to a private person or sold to themselves off duty, then that 1 gram could be taken and be displayed or gifted or something like that. Here they're kind of evolving that a bit. So, Corey, so do you understand what I'm proposing here, and understand how Alaska law defines public?
I'm still unclear about that, I believe. Brandon, I'm clear of what you're proposing, which is to fine us $5,000 right now and spend the $15,000 upon good behavior.
Okay, and the definition of public is something that you guys really have to be able to wrap your heads around. I've struggled with it. Everyone here, and I'm certain you guys know where I stand on public consumption and how it should be defined, but we have to enforce our rules as they're written, and the definition of public is very strict, you know.
Then Moose's Tooth is getting a fine. Then every single concert that happens, even at Sullivan,
we're not discussing Moose's Tooth.
I know, but it's being applied unfairly. And this is, Brandon, you know this has happened to me. Even when I applied to become a licensed Alaska cannabis educator for the handler's permit, I was treated unfairly on that day. And I feel like at some point it's like, what did I do? What did I do so wrong that is making people want to attack me personally? That's how I feel, and whether or not that's right or wrong. That's because, again, I feel like we covered our bases. It's legal in the state of Alaska to give away 28 grams of marijuana, whether you're licensed or not, if you're a personal grower. And that's what we do. That's the crux of our whole competition.
They give away weed to the company.
Okay, so I don't want to have a debate with you, Corey. I just think that you guys really need to look closely at the laws, specifically public consumption and see how, in a situation like yours, even though you felt it was a private event, it's actually not. It was a public event. I mean, and I'm not going to debate the merits of that with you, but that is the situation that you're in. And then if the board decides to accept my proposal, those are going to be part of the stipulations. Like if you held another event and the same thing occurred, you need to know that you would be in violation unless the rules change. I'll leave it there.
Okay, so do you have a motion, Mr. Emmett?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, a motion that the board uphold the fine with $15,000 suspended and place conditions upon the suspension that any future events held by the Rays must comply to the letter of Alaskan law.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Miller. And you have a word for us?
I was just going to suggest that in those conditions that the statute be cited so that it's very clear we're talking about violations of 1738 and regulations under that statute.
Yes, so motioned.
Okay, very good. Are we ready to? Is there any more discussion? I think that's fair. It does not prevent the Rays from having another Canada's Classic event here in Alaska. At least a trade show sort of event, and we've got regulations developing for that. So, any more board discussion? Anything to stop? No. All right, ready to vote? Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Emmett?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, so it's 3-1 to levy a $5,000 fine with $15,000 suspended for violation of...
Mr. Chair, it's a $20,000 fine.
$20,000 fine with $15,000 suspended. Thank you.
$20,000 fine, $15,000 suspended on condition that they won't do it.
Correct. Okay. All right. Okay. So that I believe concludes this matter. So let's move on.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
A proposed fine to Robinson Garcia. Is Mr. Garcia here? You may come up. Okay, so Director McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Mr. Garcia is the owner of the event space at 420 West 3rd. And when I became aware of the bake-off event, not only did I write to the Rays, but I wrote to Mr. Garcia informing him that there was illegal activity proposed on his property, and that if AMCO found that public consumption occurred at the event, that I would recommend that the board impose a civil fine on him, as well as on the holders of the event, in that he, as the owner of the property, is responsible to ensure when he knows that there's no illegal activity on his site. Mr. Garcia and I had a telephone conversation on Friday, May 18th, which was the day before the event. We discussed the matter, and he told me at that time that he didn't yet have a written signed contract with the Rays, but that he had a verbal contract with them, and that when he did get the written contract completed, he would handwrite onto it that there could be no consumption of edibles. And I clarified to him that there could be no consumption of any type of marijuana at that event, and he stated he understood. And I requested a copy of the contract. After that conversation, I wrote 2 emails to Mr. Garcia, which are included in the packet, recommending that he have a signed contract before the event so that I had assurance that the Rays understood Mr. Garcia's expectation of the use of his property. I did not get a response from Mr. Garcia to either of those emails. As I've stated under the last tab, there was a great deal of public consumption at the event. On Friday, June 8th, last Friday, Mr. Garcia brought a copy of the contract to the office, and it is attached, and it does state that it was signed on May 18th, but I don't really understand why that wasn't provided to me before the event. So my recommendation is that the board assess a civil fine of $10,000 upon Mr. Garcia for knowingly allowing on his property violations of 1738-040.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garcia. Good morning. According to Mrs. Erica McConnell, we did start talking on 511. I did not have an agreement. I had spoke to the Rays. They had addressed me and texted me that they wanted to move their event to a private place, and they said that they wanted to also do a private party. I did speak with Mrs. Erica on Friday, and I discussed with her that I told her that I had a verbal agreement, not a contract or anything, that we discussed that they were able to rent the facility because it was open. It would just be like renting a Viking hall or any kind of hall. When I spoke to Mrs. Erica, I spoke to her and I said that I had spoke to Corey and that I was not going to prior. I told her that I was not going to rent to them if it wasn't legal or for anything they were doing was illegal. She assured me that they had changed some things on their Facebook. I said, so are you okay moving forward? She said, yes, as long as you put on your clause, or on your contract, that there will be no consumption of marijuana or cannabis. I went ahead and did that on the side. I could show you guys. I believe she has a copy. I dropped off. Okay, so I went ahead and did that. There's also a clause that says that the promoter, let me read it to you really quick. The promoter and staff will obey applicable federal, state, and local laws while on the premise. Alcohol and smoking drugs and weapons will not be brought or sold on the premise. Alcohol on the premise must have a catered license, so it would be the same thing. When I spoke to Corey and I spoke to Kendra, I explained to them that, when I spoke to Kendra and I spoke to Corey, I had addressed them and I told them that I didn't want any problems because of a tenant that I had in the past had caused me issues with the board. Every time Mrs. Erica or Mrs. Sarah has addressed me, I have complied with all the rules and everything they've asked for. I've never done anything. I believe that the fine and the way that this is going about, technically based off of what she's saying, that if I would have gave her this contract prior or after, there would be no citation. I did exactly what she said. The only thing that did not happen is I did not send this to her. There was a hiccup on my email, things happened, I don't believe that this is fair. I can go on and say that if someone was to rent a facility in Anchorage, a Viking hall or a rental hall, and there was supposed to be a trade show, and a minor was to consume alcohol, would you fine the landlord? I've never heard of that. I've never heard of any landlord being fined. I don't know if this is a targeted thing. I don't know if it was because of the past of one of my tenants, but I do, and Mrs. Erica could say, and Ms. Cynthia Franklin could say, that everything that I've been addressed, I've taken care of action, either with a lawyer or myself, and everything has moved forward. There's never been any disputes. We might have had some misunderstandings in the sense of I just want things explained. I'm a landlord. I've done everything that they asked when they wanted me to get rid of a tenant. I did what we were asked to do in the right procedure, and we did everything that we were supposed to do. So I guess my question is, why am I being fined this, and why is this even happening again? Like, I did everything she asked for. There's no reason for this. I just don't see the justification. Were you on the premise at all during this event?
No, sir. I've never, as crazy as it may seem, I've never participated in any marijuana event. I've never consumed marijuana. It's even crazier that I'm a Colombian descendant and I've never smoked weed, so it makes it even crazier. But I was not. I was there before the event to make sure that we signed this last thing. I was there the day before. I was there the day of because I had to let him into the facility. I reassured him and I asked him, I said, hey, I don't want any problems. Please make sure that nothing happens. And then I left the event. I have other things that I have to do. I don't really hang out at events, especially of marijuana use. It's not my thing. I was there in the beginning, which was at 9 in the morning, and then I left for the day, and I was busy doing other stuff. I never came back till about, I want to say 3 in the morning, till I was done with another event that I had going on. I do numerous events all over town. I've seen
people consume at different events. I've never heard of any landlords or building owners or owners being sued for the consumption of other people. I cannot control that I was not at. I warned them. I did everything that I was asked to do and above more. I discussed it with them verbally. I even told Mrs. Erica that I was not going to rent to them if she wasn't comfortable with them. She assured me that she wanted me to do these items and take care of this, and I did. The only thing that I will say that I've, again, addressed, that I did not do, that I did not email this to her, it does not mean that I did not take action and I did not do everything she asked me to do. So.
Okay, so according to this contract, there's two things. They violated the contract. They violated the contract with you, it would appear, by permitting consumption of marijuana on the premises. I mean, there's these evidence of that from photographs that we've seen. They, since they had liability insurance of $1 million, presuming that they took that out with you as the additional insured for that one day. If this fine was to stand, would you have a claim against that insurance policy?
I don't know if you've ever sued anybody. It's not as easy as you think. Even kicking out a tenant takes longer than 30 days when you think it's 30 days. I would say that the easiest way as a landlord, as a business owner, would be just not to rent to these people again. That would be the easiest way to do it. I would not want to ruin their moms and pops' business that they have. I'm a business owner, local, and I've lived here my whole life. I would not want to come after someone for... It's not my job to correct whatever they did, so I would not want to pursue that, to be honest with you. So I would just like to be left alone and let them deal with their $5,000
Okay, so Director McConnell, in terms of the chronology here, now that you see the lease, the rental agreement, does that change your position at all on the necessity of levying a fine?
So I do think there's a big difference between, you know, renting an event and a minor comes in and has a drink. I mean, that's not something that's clearly stated, hey, we're going to hold an event and invite minors to come drink. I mean, and what was proposed and has occurred at this particular event every single year is against state law. And so my attempt is to make sure that state law is complied with. I find it disappointing that Mr. Garcia, knowing that I felt very strongly that that he assured that this wasn't going to happen in his site, that he didn't make extra care to get me a copy of the contract before the event. And it is also disappointing that, you know, he has a contract that tells his temporary tenants not to do something, and they did it. Nothing, apparently, well, anyway. It's really up to the board. I certainly can understand why the board would not want to assess the fine that's requested.
Can I speak real quick, if you don't mind?
Hold on just a minute.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I met Mr. Garcia once before. He showed me his venue and the different events that he's held there. I think they're having a dance upstairs that night that we met. And I can see having multiple events often and running a small business, not being intimately involved with all of the events that are happening in your space. Granted, it does seem like maybe some greater care should have been taken to assure that on-site consumption didn't happen because you were alerted to it, but knowing the nature of Mr. Garcia's business and that he has multiple venues, I can see him just not being there and maybe not taking the amount of care that needed to be done. I do feel that if we decide to fine Mr. Garcia the $10,000, that in the future, assuming that there are expansions to our current marijuana regulations, it's going to be very, very difficult for the industry to be able to find a venue if people are getting $10,000 fines for having an event there. I can see us doing something here, but the $10,000 fine, that just seems pretty steep for someone who was not the event organizer, who did what seems like have a contract in place that was supposed to prevent on-site consumption. I don't have a proposal for what that fine might be, but those are my thoughts. I think this seems a bit steep.
Any other comments?
I guess overall I don't support fining Mr. Garcia at all. You know, should he have taken better care? Yes. Did he take some care? Yes. I think he took the care he should have by putting it in the lease and having conversations with the Rays. And I would hope that they did assure you, and I would hope that you did believe what you were hearing. But you know, I guess I can't support a fine for a landlord for renting his venue for things that happened that were out of their control and when they weren't there. So.
Sure. I don't know where I stand, but in looking at the contract, I find it interesting that you know, this contract was signed you know, late, if not, you know, the day before. And yet, if you look at the body of the contract, if they were to have a permit for alcohol, this lease required them to do that 15 days prior to the event. But this contract wasn't even signed till like the day before the event, which, you know, leads me to believe that you know, he was, you know, either not paying attention to what was going to happen at this event, or whether the Rays were, you know, convincing him that everything was going to be okay and signed it the day before, and you know, owner beware. But I don't think there was a lot of adequate due diligence done here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I am also kind of hesitant to fine a landlord, you know, certainly a substantial amount. When they came to you and said, we would like to rent your venue, what exactly did they tell you that they had in mind? I noticed on the lease it says, what is it called? For an award show. Did you have any, did they, you know, go into any more detail on that with you?
No, not, for one, yeah, they said it was an award show, and that's all I was kind of aware of. I basically wanted to reiterate something that Mrs. Erica said. She said that when she stated something, she said the cannabis event, she keeps going back to the event. The event was not mine. I was a landlord. I am a landlord. I'm a business owner. I do my due diligence, and I make sure that everything that goes on my facility reflects on me, so I make sure that I go above and beyond. Unfortunately, on this event, I was not there. I did not want to participate. I'm not in the cannabis community to even, generally if it's something with alcohol related, Mrs. Sarah over here can tell you that I'm 100% involved in the event because it's something that I've always wanted to be in, and I know the industry, so I try to participate, make sure that there's no consumption. Some of your inspectors can tell you I've done walkthroughs. I try to do very thorough in everything I do. Just that was, as a business owner, sometimes you have to assess where you have to be as a business owner, and if you have multiple businesses, you can't be at every location, so you assess which one is less of the liability. You do everything you can to hold people accountable, but unfortunately, we're all adults. If I was to ask Ms. Erica to do something, I'm expecting her to do it if she tells me she's going to do it. I can't be with her 24/7 to make sure that she does it. This is exactly what happened in this event. I discussed this with the Rays. I explained to them what they needed to do. They assured me that there was not going to be no consumption. They signed the day before the day of, when I met them to open the door, they assured me that there was going to be no consumption. I told them that I did not want to have any problems with the board or Mrs. Erica. I did everything I could possibly do with the extent of what I was able to do. So to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, they told me it was an award show, and that was it, and that they said that they were going to do some educational stuff. So I didn't think that there would be any consumption on an award show. I didn't know that you have to receive an award and smoke a joint or anything like that. So I'm not aware of any of that.
Then, I mean, it appears to me between the terms in the contract where it says no consumption of marijuana, the fact that you had been notified by the director that there was an anticipation that there might be consumption of marijuana, although it's a short compression of time when they added that clause in there. You know, I mean, you have to admit that you have some experience with marijuana being used on that premises in the past, and went through, you know, that hassle. I don't necessarily think that a violation against the landlord is should probably stay on the record. So, does anybody have a motion they would like to make on this matter?
Hey, Mr. Chair, I motion that the board vacate the fine against Mr. Garcia.
Second. Okay, is there any discussion on that? Mr. Jones, any thoughts on vacating the fine? Okay, then let us vote on this. Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Emmett?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So the fine is vacated. Correspondence stays on the record.
Mr. Chair, before Mr. Garcia leaves, can I ask, have you taken down the public event sign?
I have not taken it down because they made a certain boost.
Okay, well, we asked you to take it down a year ago.
I put a sign, I covered it up. I will address that here in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, okay, thanks, Garcia.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, let's put this thing into reasonably high gear. Move on to the program coordinator's report. Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our newest occupational licensing examiner, Michael Milton, started working with our team on April 16th. We still have a school district, and she's been a valuable addition to our team. We still have one vacant position as our records and licensing supervisor position, and we will be conducting interviews next week and still hope to have that position filled very quickly. I think you all know our local government specialist, Jed Smith, who's in the middle of the crowd. Jed, if you want to raise your hand. Thank you. He and I have been working on some short-term training plans over the recent months, and he particularly has been working with local government to help educate them on alcohol and marijuana laws. And over the next few months, we will be establishing a more comprehensive training plan that will include travel on his part, outreach to local governments, licensees, and other stakeholders groups, improved and increased resources, and improved communication with stakeholders, licensees, and the public. Jane Sawyer began training, I have it on my report, TJ Zielinski, on processing marijuana license renewal applications last month, and he is going to be, or he is our primary examiner responsible for the renewal applications. While he's processing those, Jane and Jacqueline, we call her Jack, are continuing to process new and transfer marijuana applications so that things continue to move along. They will likely have to help TJ with renewal applications as we get closer to the end of the month, because we do have over 215 applications that were sent out to licensees, and we have received a relatively small percentage of those. As you see in my report,
as of June 6th, we had only received portions of 25 out of 215 of those, and of those, only 9 at that time had been determined to be complete. So I would just like to find licensees and encourage licensees to get your applications in as soon as possible, because examiners do need time to review them, particularly if you have many licensees involved. And it is expected by the regulation that applications will be complete by July 2nd. Otherwise, they will be assessed a $1,000 late fee, and we do not want you guys to have to pay late fees. And last-minute submissions of large amounts of renewal applications, which happens on the alcohol side, is extremely taxing on the staff. So it's in everybody's best interest that you get them in as soon as possible. Thank you. The next thing I want to talk to the board about is marijuana product ingredients. During the last few meetings, this board has required each marijuana product manufacturer to choose one specific marijuana concentrate that would be used as an ingredient in each marijuana product, and to refer to that concentrate by its proper noun, by the name given to it. This has been a recent requirement when formerly the board allowed manufacturers more flexibility. Restricting a licensee to a single specific concentrate produced by a single manufacturer that may be used in each product could make things difficult for both manufacturers and licensing staff. If the manufacturer is unable to obtain that specific concentrate to use as an ingredient in a product, the manufacturer would be required to submit an operating plan change, pay a $250 fee, and then await processing of the licensing staff and either temporary approval of the director or final approval from the board before the manufacturer could resume production of that specific product. Additionally, licensees have voiced concerns about requirement because environmental health officers from DEC's Food Safety and Sanitation Program review those ingredients. They review labels, they review ingredients, they have their own processes that we go through after we send them a complete application. And you know, they do a review for potential health concerns, labeling requirements, and with the use of a proper pronoun within an ingredient list, that can cause confusion for both DEC and for consumers. You know, it really seems like the board's biggest concern is consumer awareness and public safety, health and safety, and if a consumer is looking at a label and sees that one of the ingredients is, the example I use is, you know, something called honey. We've seen a couple of concentrates that have the name honey in them, but they don't actually contain bee pollen honey. They're a type of concentrate. The consumer may assume that there is bee pollen honey in there. Or DEC might assume that there's bee pollen honey in there and might require the manufacturer to place things on the label that are unnecessary. That particular example could be misleading to too. You know, the board has repeatedly expressed interest over the last couple of years in finding ways to minimize the number of operating plan change forms that are required to be filed for minor changes. And admittedly, I have pushed back on you about what is minor change, what's a major change, until you guys can kind of iron that out and give staff guidance on that. We've kind of been pushing back on that a little bit. But it seems like having the very strict requirement of having one specific concentrate for each ingredient could significantly increase the operating plan changes that we see. And so it is my recommendation that the board not take any action at the exact moment, but that you take that into consideration when reviewing future applications for marijuana product manufacturers and for new marijuana products. Unless you want them to MJ 15, then we'll take that direction. There have been new marijuana products proposed using the existing and old versions of forms MJ05 and MJ16, for which staff has had to ask follow-up questions because it can occasionally be difficult to determine whether something is a concentrate or some other type of marijuana product that might require a different type of license to manufacture. Additionally, members of the board often ask questions regarding the intended use of products, and some concentrates are manufactured using natural fats or alcohols. Considering the above, I am requesting board approval of a few minor changes to Form MJ05 and MJ16, which are the product manufacturing facility operating plan supplemental, it's a long name, and the proposed new marijuana product forms. If you go to attachment A, which is found in pages 5 through 7 of my report, I can explain to you what those minor changes would be. The first would be to add a drop-down box for the licensee to choose whether a proposed product is a concentrate or a different type of marijuana product, so that it's very straightforward and clear to the examiner. This is a concentrate, or this is some other product that would require a product manufacturing license versus a concentrate manufacturing license. To add an intended use field. Both of those changes are on the first page of the form. And then the third request change would be to remove the words, which you can't see on this form, but currently on page 2 of the form in the ingredients box, there's text that says that ingredients are not applicable, the box is not applicable to marijuana concentrates, and because of the fact that some marijuana concentrates can be made using natural fats, we would recommend removing them. The ingredients list is required for any proposed product.
That's like a whole report.
It's not. You want me to go through the whole thing? The next section of my report is regarding a new proposed form. The regulation change went into effect on May 25th, which allows for quality control of marijuana products. The regulation says that quality control must be reported on a form prescribed by the board, so this is that form, and which is attachment B, found on pages 8 and 9 of my report. We have had multiple requests for this form because people are anxious to begin conducting quality control testing. So a couple of questions that I had, that Director McConnell and I had, are, number one, does the board want there to be specific questions included in Section 4 regarding sample quality, or is just a generic provide all comments regarding the quality of the sample box acceptable? And the second question is, does the board want there to be a deadline by which the completed forms must be returned to the licensee by each employee? Because if you may or may not recall, but the regulations that you adopted require the licensee to retain copies of these completed forms for business records. And other than statistics, which I have put into an Excel table, which I hope is acceptable for you, Mr. Chair, is regarding carbon dioxide. The licensing team has received a few responses from State Fire Marshal that include a comment saying that CO2 use is not approved for certain facilities. Some cultivation establishments either indicated on our operating plan that they do intend to use supplemental CO2 and have gotten that response from the Fire Marshal, or they did not specify whether CO2 would be used. That's usually on applications that were received closer to the beginning of this industry. Staff is wondering whether the board would require a copy of Form MJ15, the operating plan change, to be filed to remove the use of CO2 from their operating plan. in these situations, or whether the board would be supportive of delegating to the director the authority to place the CO2 condition on the license without requiring additional paperwork, which I think is our preference.
Yeah, and without an additional fee. I mean, it's a firearms requirement.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't have any problem with that. Any problem with that? That's being a general delegation.
No, that's fine.
Okay, great. All right, then, so we've got a proposed, let's look at the change to MJ16.
Mr. Chair, may I just request that if the board does want to delegate that to the director, that you do a formal action?
Sure. So there's a motion to delegate to the director the ability to remove CO2 use from a operating plan when the fire marshal has nixed it.
So motion.
Second. Okay, any opposition? Okay, then that passes. So the MJ16, this is just putting in the 2 drop boxes, or 1 drop box?
Mr. Chair, we'd be putting in, well, I guess one will be changed to a drop box. The perishable section is currently, they have to write in yes or no. So it would be adding a drop box to the product type field, adding the intended use field, which is not on the current form, and then removing the language under the ingredient section on page 2, which says that this is not applicable to concentrates.
Okay, is there a motion to approve that? Go ahead.
Yeah, motion to approve as stated by the program coordinator.
Okay, second.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before you vote, and I apologize, Ms. Oates, for not asking this before when we looked over this, but under the intended use, the examples are smokable, edible, topical, and wholesale. But is wholesale really what we want there? Because that doesn't still give us what the intended use. I don't quite get that. Through the chair, Director McConnell, I think that it would be an intended use because marijuana concentrate facilities or product manufacturing facilities can sell wholesale marijuana concentrate to another product manufacturer or use it themselves to be used in products. So I guess that's what we meant by the term wholesale. So they wouldn't have to indicate whether it was going to go to be an edible or go to be used for some other thing. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt the changes to MJ16?
So motion.
Okay, second.
Mr. Chair, just to make the record clear, the same changes would be made to MJ05 as well.
Okay, great.
Through the chair to Sarah, so in the motion, would it be appropriate to just motion that the former revisions MJ05 and MJ16 be adopted as included in the program coordinator's report?
Through the chair, Mr. Emmett, that would be acceptable. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Chair, that is my motion.
Very good. Any, we have a second? Discussion. Anybody opposed to adopting this change? Then it's approved. And then we get the MJ26 Quality Control Report. This will be should I say maintained or retained by the licensee, probably. It doesn't matter. So the completed copy of this form must be maintained by the licensee.
Mr. Chair, that is the language in the regulation. I tried.
All right, very good.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So the matter of MJ26, I would think that the general comment section would be acceptable. And I also think that a deadline would be applicable as well. That deadline would be 7 days. Give people
the time is from the time the report's returned.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the motion to where do we want to put that in?
It wasn't a motion. I just want a little discussion on that before I nail it down.
Gotcha. Yeah. No. I mean, right now, like you hand a sample to an employee and never have any idea where it is. So, any discussion to change that up?
And then, and so in the general comment or a drop-down box, did you guys have any thoughts on what that might include? The general comment section? acceptable? Is there anything specific that...
Through the chair, Mr. Emmett. So the purpose of this being for employees to help the licensee evaluate the quality of the product. So, you know, there could be a rating system, there could be, you know, one of the places that I went to in Colorado had an opportunity, they had iPads out with each product, and they had an opportunity for people to review the product in the iPad, and so people talked about whether it made them sleepy or made them alert, did they want to use it in the morning, did they want to use it in the evening. I mean, there were questions that really try to get to, what I feel like the board is trying to get to is quality control, but if we just allow people to say, yeah, this was good, what are we really getting out of this whole process? So trying to help encourage people who, to what the kind of thing the board and the licensee will want to know out of a test of quality of a product.
So that said, it might be applicable to have a couple sections in there, like effect, strength, different. I'm drawing a blank here, but I can see where the director is getting. That might actually be helpful.
Sure. If the idea is, I assume the date is 7 days after the sample is provided, the form should be in the document or in the record. On the form it says date sample provided, but there's no date for when the form was returned or a date stamp people would look for, so there either needs to be a requirement that it be date stamped by the licensee, or somehow a date provided in here, form resubmitted on such and such date, or down by the signature the employee signs that they put a date on it.
Through the chair, Mr. Jones, Ms. Oates is excellent at keeping her form to be very specific to what the regulations say, and since the regulations don't stress returning the form back to the licensee, that was why we brought the question. And if the board said, yes, we do want the 7 days, Ms. Oates will revise the form to address that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so, which I don't have a copy of D in my book, so I'm just worried about the penalty of unsworn falsification of the form, including depictions. I mean, as somebody said, this stuff really kicked my butt, and it turns out that just as the quality control test of its own, the licensee gave them some catnip. They'd probably get fired for an incorrect depiction. So I'm just wondering whether, I mean, there's no penalty. You know, it says, I don't know, Ms. Milks, is it appropriate for something like this for us to have a declaration of under penalty of unsworn falsification that it, I guess where they do say certified certification, yeah. Under the certification, that says they are staying in compliance with the statute and regulations.
Because recall, the regulation requires that they can't sell it to anyone else. And so I think we do want them to swear to that.
Okay. All right. You know, let's just put next to signature, let's just put a date. Well, that's when they receive. Oh no, they sign it after they've consumed it.
Can you let us just make the appropriate adjustment on the form?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So, is there any additional discussion on the adoption of MCB 26? Okay. Is there any opposition to the adoption of MCB 26? Mr. Jones.
I guess that. So. You're talking about the motion. I thought it was a comment, Mr. Chairman. We don't have a motion, and does that motion include the 7 days?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Because you're trying to get us to approve something that we haven't done any motion on.
Yeah, no, I apologize. Okay, is there a motion on MCB 26?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll motion to approve MCB 26.
With the addition of a date?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
And some quality questions?
And Yes, and some quality questions as provided by staff.
And I would just suggest that if anybody who might be using this forum has any ideas what sort of questions they would like to have asked, just shoot a note to the director, etc. Quickly. Okay, so with that, is there any opposition to adopting MGA 26 on the motion? Okay, not seeing any, it's adopted. So that concludes your report, Sarah.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
All right, thank you. Then we will move on to regulations. And try to get them all done before lunch, huh? All right, so that's tab 10 that we are going to... Okay. Tab 10 is the testing working group. Sorry. So let's do testing working group recommendations. Yeah. Where'd he go? There he is. And good job.
Come on down.
Right ahead.
Thank you, members of the board. I think the memo really... Sorry. Judge Smith, local government specialist for the Alcohol and Marijuana Control Office. I think the memo that you have before you represents the work to date of the testing working group. There are 7 pages of proposed draft regulation changes that reflect the work of the group at this point. We still have a lot of work to do, but I don't really want to belabor any of the information that's already in your report. So happy to answer questions.
Okay, Mr.
Mr. Chair, I assume you guys were able to read the report. It's a bit lengthy. I think staff and I could answer some questions for clarification in the report. If you guys deem necessary, otherwise we're going to just highlight these 4 first bullet points and then go into the proposed regulation changes.
Okay, we're not at it. So we going to be taking action on these regulations?
Yes, sure. There is potential for us to start a regulations project on, I believe, 8 pages of regulation. All right. Okay, so we'll go through our bullet points. So we've got some current proposals, and the format that the working group has taken is to search for consensus on these 28 issues that we've identified in areas where we were not able to find consensus. We tried to bring forward the varied viewpoints of the committee, narrowed down as much as we could. And so we have these 4 bullets here. So the first one, so there is consensus among the working group that harvested marijuana should be graded and separated into 4 general categories prior to being tested. That would be bud, flower, primary trim, secondary trim, and keef. And the keef may be combined across multiple harvests. Further, drawing representative rather than random samples from the category will promote more accurate potency testing. Do you guys have questions on that particular point?
He just really quickly described representative versus random.
Okay, so during our discussions, the group chose to recommend representative rather than random because a random sample might not actually, quote unquote, represent that package of marijuana. Let's say you had a 5-pound batch of marijuana flower, and 70 to 80% of those buds are the size of your thumb and a certain density. But there's also a percentage of small popcorn buds or maybe large colas in that sample. And if you're drawing at random, you could actually be choosing a bud that doesn't represent that package as a whole. And as we know, marijuana potency can vary throughout a harvest batch, and we still haven't completely nailed down the variation that we see from the testing lab. And so this is the way that the group felt we could get the closest to having an accurate representation of what's in the package using the tools provided with us and the confines of our current regulations and testing procedures. Okay.
Mr. Chair, when you talk about 4 categories, my initial thought is sort of the tax scheme. One is trim and one is bud and flower. So in terms of breaking it up for testing purposes from a cultivator, would I assume that bud and flower is what gets taxed at the $50 an ounce, and all the rest is currently taxed at the $2.50 or whatever it is? And secondly, does that make a difference in primary trim, secondary trim? Keef can get sold directly to, I guess, a retailer, but the other 2 get sold to a manufacturer. Does that make a difference in terms of testing? And that's just probably more based on my knowledge than anything else.
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Jones. That's actually a really good question, and this is an issue that the testing work group struggled with, and you'll find that some of the work group's recommendations are actually in conflict with the way marijuana flower and trim are taxed. And so this is one issue, as you'll see in some of the regulation changes, that we intend to leave at the feet of the board and see where the board sits on it. But we have a situation where, so far as the industry is concerned and the testing labs are concerned, there are 4 distinct kinds of marijuana being tested and sold. Now, using the parts of the plant definition, bud and flower and what we're defining as primary trim would actually still fall under the current tax scheme, because our definitions for these 2 are very similar, whereas secondary trim and Keef would fall under the trim definition. And this kind of segues a bit into the broader discussion that we're having about how taxes are currently enforced and how the industry and testing actually work. So, and again, that is for this body to decide whether they want to adopt some of the recommendations that talk about definitions for this. But the current structure the current intent is bud and flower is generally sold to a retailer for direct sale to consumers. Whereas primary trim and secondary trim can be either sold to a retailer for like joint rolling material, but are generally intended to be sold to a manufacturer to be made into concentrates, because they don't have as high of a value as the bud and flower category that is ready for a retail sale. They still have significant value, but generally only after they've been turned into concentrates. And then the Keef is in a category of its own, and we decided that maybe combine them across multiple harvests, because it's higher potency than the other bud flower, primary trim, secondary trim, but you also only collect a little bit of it at a time with each harvest. And so if it is going to be sold to a retailer, that it can be drawn from multiple harvest batches, but that it also requires its own test.
Okay, that helps. the other question is, I know that on some product manufacturers, and I know we're basically talking about cultivators, but I even think in some of our cultivated applications, the cultivators, said they were going to be producing pre-rolls, some of which are then rolled in keef. So if we're requiring testing of the keef, and then all the trim, and then the cultivator does pre-rolls and sells that to retailers, that pre-roll, rolling keef, then gets a separate test in and of itself, or is testing of the components, when you say keef, is higher than maybe what's inside the roll? So that was the other question. Dividing it out that way brings them to me.
And then this committee did not actually explore that particular scenario, and I don't actually have any experience with that product, how that is tested. I would assume that once that product is completely finished, it would be sent to the testing lab as a product, and then it would be macerated and tested. But we didn't look at that, and so I'll turn to the director for clarification.
That sort of situation, a pre-roll that's rolled in keef, rolled in oil, and then rolled in keef is a marijuana product that would have to be manufactured at a product manufacturing facility and would be tested as an end product.
Okay, any further clarification needed on bullet point 1? Okay, we'll move along to bullet point 2. So the committee had consensus on the reporting for the standard of potency, and that would be reflected in the formula used to calculate total THC and total CBD. In our current regulations, you can report THC a couple ways. You can report it by using the amount of THCA and THC and adding them together and putting that on your label. Or you can use the data that's provided by a testing lab that takes THCA, multiplies it by 0.877 to account for the molecular mass loss through decarboxylation. Basically, when you take the THCA, you convert it to THC, it gets lighter. You take that number and then add that to the amount of THC that's in there, and then you get the amount of THC that's actually available to go into the bloodstream. Currently, someone could inflate their numbers by saying, okay, I've got X amount of THCA in my product, and I have Y amount of THC. I'm going to add those together, and then that's the total THC that I'm going to put on my package. Whereas another company could be saying, well, I want to have a true representation of the amount of THC that's available to go into someone's body, and so I'm going to take THCA, multiply it by 0.877, and then add that to THC. The committee decided that there needed to be a single standard here, and there was consensus amongst the group that standard should actually reflect the amount of THC that is available to the consumer, so they can reasonably assume the effect that they're going to get. And so we have a definition provided for this bullet point further down in the proposed regulations.
Mr. Chair, I would like to clarify that as far as alternate methods of reporting the amount of THC, that the alternate method of reporting THC is only found in the section of regulation that talks about the report from the testing facility to the cultivation facility about THC content. All of the other areas of the regulation actually specifically say that what is to go on the label is the amount of THC. Because THC in our current regulations is separately from THCA, it has come to our attention that what is technically specifically required in the regulations is not what is actually occurring with the industry, and it is our belief that was not the board's intent. Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is my understanding that oftentimes the amount of specifically THC could be is often substantially smaller than the amount of total THC or available THC that the consumer would consume. So what we're doing here is cleaning up regulations to meet what we believe to be the board's intent, which is that what is reported on the labels to the consumer is the amount of THC, consumable THC or active THC, not active.
That's correct. Active
THC, thank you. Rather than just specifically only THC. And so the changes in the draft regulations are adding a definition, amending the definition of that definition to reflect that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't have any corrections. Sarah stated that is our intent. And the same would go for CBD as well. Same calculation, everything. Questions? Okay, we'll move on to the third bullet point here. So the sample collecting protocols, including required sample sizes and certain laboratory operating and reporting procedures, should come in the form of a guidance document from the board and then not necessarily be prescribed in regulation. And we wrestled with this one a bit, and we feel that if we pigeonhole ourselves into a specific recommendation about sample collecting protocols, sample size, lab operating procedures, that sort of thing, that if best practices come along, or the committee decides to alter its position from one previously taken because of new factual information that's presented, then it can take a very long time for a regulation project to start and ultimately be adopted. And so our proposal is that we adopt guidance documents so that the regulations state that these collecting procedures, sample sizes, laboratory operating procedures, that those be required in regulation to meet the letter of the guidance document provided by the board, because I believe that we can alter those more quickly than we can a regulation. And so Jed or Sarah, do you have some further clarification here? I'm starting to get into your arena a bit.
Yeah, Jed Smith. We haven't had a chance to consult with the Department of Law on the specifics of this. I think some of the discussions that I've had kind of look at as an example, DEC's field collection protocols for contaminated soils. They have adopted by reference some field collection guidelines. One possibility is that we could do something similar. I think, maybe one of the benefits of this is, as Mr. Emmett said, more nimble and rapidly responsive changes to that. But I also think really one of the benefits to adopting something like this by reference is that you can get to a level of specificity that maybe the formatting of regulations would be a little bit cumbersome. You could adopt by reference a document that has some pretty detailed field collection sample guidelines, specific instructions on how to do that would be kind of cumbersome in regulatory language.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, it'll depend on what exactly is proposed to be adopted by reference. Anything adopted by reference that you intend licensees to be bound by has to be in regulation. So you can regulation adopt some very specific standards by reference. Lots of other professions do this. Doctors do it. Nurses do it. It's a very handy tool. But it has to be in regulation. So, and as far as policy guidelines go, those are generally disfavored because they're not in regulation. They haven't been adopted as a part of the public process. But there are certain things, exigencies of this particular industry that may require that in some circumstances. They could be interim guidelines. If they're guidelines, that means they're guidelines. You can't really hold licensees to those proposals in the same way that you can a regulation. If guidelines are used truly as guidelines, that's fine. But when they're used as de facto regulations, that's when we run into the problem. So I'll certainly be very happy to look at any proposed document that Mr. Smith or Mr. Emmett thinks are relevant and may end up being adopted by reference, and we can talk about that then.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So this is basically testing at a cultivation level, so we're not talking about products and those kinds of things yet. I assume you'll get there. But I remember in some of the discussions early on about testing and sort of how the results and the differences between testing oftentimes says, well, depending on what kind of test you want, one vendor was asking for a gram, one vendor was asking for 4 grams. I think it was around Asper, I can't pronounce it right. But I don't see any of that variation reflected in here. Are you assuming, or was the testing group telling us that if you meet the standard of 0.35% of a batch, that would provide a test lab sufficient to do all of the tests that we want them to do, maybe more than what one lab would need versus, would be sufficient for the lab that wanted the most. And I didn't see any of that in here, so.
And through the chair, Mr. Jones, so that actually does roll us into our next point. So there was not clear consensus regarding the amount of marijuana from a harvest that should be submitted by a cultivator to a testing facility. There were a few schools of thought that were brought forward. So we looked at other states' regulations, and we looked at some recommendations provided by one of the labs themselves, and then we weighed that against the some of the opinions from the state-sponsored scientific community, and so we came up with a few different options for what this board might propose. So right now, Colorado generally requires 4 grams per pound of harvested marijuana. Oregon requires 0.5% of the total harvest be submitted, and then so the two competing proposals from the group are: 1, a flat requirement of 4 grams in half-gram increments for a total of 8 samples, regardless of harvest size, or a graduated number of 1 gram samples based upon total harvest batch size and the minimum requirement of 4 1-gram samples and requiring 0.35% of each harvest batch to be submitted for testing. And then you can see table A on page 2. So in the second recommendation was brought forward a little later, but it seems that there were a few, I would say maybe a few more people after having a chance to look at this, that it seemed like this could work. Again, there was no total consensus, but in this graduated batch size that's actually provides us with a chart, there wasn't vehement opposition either. So I personally, after looking at both, I like this one. But again, we could leave that up to the board to decide. Sarah, do you want to comment?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Emmett. Through the chair, to kind of add to what Brandon said, so at the very last meeting of our testing working group, which took place last week, it kind of came to the group's attention in the last 15 minutes of the meeting that there seemed to be kind of a misunderstanding about the original proposal, which is the first bullet of those two within the group. There's the first bullet talks about dividing a harvest into 4 different grades, bud and flower, primary trim, secondary trim, and keef. And in the last 15 minutes of the last meeting, the impression that I got from the cultivators who were present was that they were of the understanding that the actual harvest, the entire harvest, would be a maximum of 10 pounds, and then within that harvest would be the 4 different grades, and from each of those grades would be the 8 half-gram samples. Whereas the remainder of the group had the understanding that that a harvest could be 80 pounds, but that each harvest batch, which would be, there would be, however many harvest batches of bud and flower, however many harvest batches of primary trim, etc., could be up to 10 pounds, and then there would only be 4 total grams sample taken from each of those 10 pounds. So in the end, I believe there were 3 cultivators who all stated during the meeting that they found the table and the second recommendation to be acceptable to them, but we still included the first bullet in here just in the event that there was somebody who was not present at the meeting or didn't speak up at the meeting who was still partial to the first idea. We wanted to make sure that all proposed ideas were brought forward to the board in the event that there was not consensus.
I'd like to ask a question. So if you pull a 10, based on this chart, if you have a 10-pound batch size, you're going to basically pull 16 grams out and send it to the test lab. Are they going to select the out of there and to test the whole 16 grams? That would be my understanding. They would test the whole 16 grams. So they break it up a little bit. But yeah, so it would be at 4 times the sample size that is currently required in regulation. And I should know more about labs, but I didn't realize they could set samples and mix and that big. That's okay. I'm just curious if they were going to pull out of that 16-gram sample.
Just to clarify through the chair, Mr. Miller, first they would homogenize the sample and then pull from it. So.
Yeah, and the idea here was that as the sample gets larger, or excuse me, as the batch gets larger, the sample size needs to be larger, again, to be representative and not just be random. So these fit together. Okay. Are there any other questions about those bullet points? Sarah and Jed, do you guys have anything additional to add? Okay. So, Mr. Chair, so it's 11:53. Can I propose that we talk about our next steps and then go into the body of the proposed regulations after lunch?
Yeah, and I'm going to, after some discussion with council and the director, I may, after lunch, ask for a motion to postpone additional consideration of regulations to the end of the meeting. We've got a pile of licenses to do here. We're a day and a half in, and we are almost a day behind. So we can wrap up test regulations, but I'd be inclined to try to on to action that's not that regulations aren't important, but we get people here that are trying to do it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would support that sentiment. We're now halfway through our entire 3-day meeting, and we haven't got any licensees yet. So.
Mr. Jones, are you clicking your microphone there? Or just okay. All right. Okay. Let's with that. Let's break for lunch now. We'll be back right at lunch, and we'll finish this one up.